It's time for Mississippi Outdoors Radio here on the JT Show on Super Talk Mississippi. Dave Hughes filling in, and in studio we have several of our usual suspects. Adam Butler joins us, wildlife biologist. How are you?
Good to be here.
It's always good
always
to have you guys.
every Monday.
Every Monday. This is your appointment. Do you
standing calendar date?
Do you get a lunch hour, or is this it?
Sometimes it's before, sometimes after.
Sometimes both.
Yeah,
depends on what kind of day you're having, I guess.
Well, it's Major Reed's turn to buy though.
Major Chris Reed, so no lunch today.
Right.
Major Reed with the Law Enforcement Bureau.
You catch on quick.
I know how this works.
You catch on quick.
Also, joining us here today with Private Lands Program Coordinator, which is a big part of the show because that's
the Habitat Man. We got our Habitat Man.
The Habitat Specialist. You are a specialist now, John. John Gruchy, how are you?
Oh, doing well. Don't oversell it now. Hold on.
Too late. That's what we do here on Mississippi Outdoors. And sitting in the corner, because she's been bad, apparently, Nicole Smith with the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science. You always put her all the way over there.
Well, we're saving the best for last.
That's where you all have the seats.
Yeah, we're saving the best for last. And she's got something really cool going on at the museum that she's going to bring up here later on.
Now, I in all fairness, let me say, they always have something cool going on over there.
This is true.
Yeah, it's incredible. Now, we have some things going on. One that we had questions about previously, the special season in North Mississippi. Let's touch on that briefly here.
Yeah, just wanted to remind the listeners, we talked, I guess, pretty much the entirety of the show last week was about this. So this coming weekend, for those 19 counties in the CWD zone in North Mississippi, they will have a special deer season. There's some special rules that apply, so it's not exactly the same rules as what we just got done with. If you take a deer in the special season, you have to have it checked. So you either got to drop it off at one of our freezers or go to one of our check-in locations that we're going to have scattered around there. Some other things apply to it's going to be weapon of choice.
Yep.
And your bag limit essentially starts over again. So regardless of how many you got during the regular season, you're going to start over again.
You can shoot 2 bucks and up to 5 does if you want to. It'll be weapon of choice on private lands. There will be some stipulations on some of our public hunting management areas, and then some of the forest areas up in North Mississippi will have some, and that's for safety reasons and the I guess the size of the land. If we put people out there with high-powered rifles, it wouldn't be a safe environment. But the main objective is to harvest some animals and get some samples to boost the sample size for these geniuses to get a better take on that disease there. I mean, I couldn't think of anything less.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, he didn't mean that sarcastically.
Yeah.
No, I think
you were being serious.
The staff that we have here are some of the best in the country. I always enjoy talking with them. I can learn something every day, which may not take a whole lot, but still, it's I can learn something.
Now,
but yeah, it's go out, be safe, harvest your animals, and check them in. We've added more. You have to. It's mandatory. And also, don't transport outside of the zone, which is something like if you are hunting inside the management zone and there's a check station on the way home to, say, Jackson, for example, and there's something there in Holmes County, that's illegal to leave the zone with that deer to drop it off outside there. So stay inside that management zone in North Mississippi.
Now, and let me just say this before we start getting the questions in on the text line. If you have a question about a particular area, if these stipulations apply, if they don't, just call them and ask them.
It'd be a lot easier to get your question answered because there's generally some follow-up questions that need to be had that we can't really flesh out on the air.
Exactly. We don't have enough time to cover all of it, and you would probably miss it if we did. So because it would be just a flood of information. So it's better to just call and get your specific information for your specific situation. And that way, when you see Major Reed or one of his guys, you can just go, "How you doing?" And they'll go, "Fine," and everything will go great, and you can go right back to
minimal interaction.
Yeah, that's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
See, what you don't realize is Major Reed and his guys really wish they had absolutely nothing to do.
Yeah. Doesn't mean everybody was doing what they're supposed to.
Yeah, if you didn't have to worry about it, you could just, you could just, wait until Adam was buying lunch and then show up. It'd be great. Now, turkey season. We've got draw hunts.
Yeah, just remind the listeners our WMA turkey season draw hunts are open right now. They'll be open through the 15th, so you still got a little while, but don't want to forget too much longer. And then, we talked about this weekend the special deer season in North Mississippi, but across the state we're also going to have a special waterfowl opportunity. The Saturday will be youth waterfowl and military veteran special waterfowl hunt. We talked about this a little bit last week, but it should be really good. I mean, the ducks have been here. They'll have a week or 10 days, I guess, to kind of calm down and it'd be a really good opportunity to get out there. And this will be the first year of the special military.
Right. So any veterans who've reached that status in the military or retired military, so it's not just for the kids anymore, it's for those service members who have served and or on active duty. And so what we require there is a copy of your DD-214, some designation of veteran status on your driver's license, and if you have that on your driver's license, you've obviously produced enough information for DPS to put it on your driver's license, or a retired military ID card. And so you could have a group, you could have a youth with a veteran, grandpa, family affair this weekend, and both could be hunting. And that's a new stipulation that we got this year, so we're excited about that.
And just a reminder, the special deer season in North Mississippi is the entire weekend. The waterfowl special opportunity is just Saturday.
Correct.
And that's the federal framework allowed 2 of those special days. Mississippi chose to put 1 on the front end and 1 on the back end. So don't go have a good day Saturday and think let's go back again tomorrow, because
over.
You will be in violation.
You will be in trouble, and that's the other point I was going to make. We talk about these special days, and they are special days and special events. That doesn't mean the law stops applying on those days, right, Major?
Yeah, we're employed for the entire year. So if you mess up in February, we'll be there to greet you.
Mess up, or March, or April, or any other month.
It don't matter.
Yeah.
We're there.
He's ready to go.
Everywhere, behind every tree.
Really quickly here, just had a question on the C Spire text line, a little bit off subject, but still, I'm going to throw it out there. My neighbor killed a deer with botflies, looked like walking death. Can you explain a little about those flies?
Sure. Probably every deer out there has those. Yeah. They're extremely common. It's essentially it is sort of gross when you see them, but it is very common in white-tailed deer. It's essentially a fly that lays eggs around the edge of the deer's nose, and the eggs hatch, and the little larval stage of the insect lives in the nasal cavity of the deer. I can't imagine. You got to think that thing crawling around in there feels really weird to the deer. I don't know, but oftentimes after you harvest a deer and the body kind of goes cold, those little larval insects will try to get out. And so you see that, and it is really kind of disgusting when you see it. But again, very common, not a big deal at all. I bet, what do you think, John? Probably 90% of the deer walking around have those.
It's a great many.
Yeah. Doesn't affect the meat, doesn't affect anything like that.
So it's not unusual.
No alarm.
It's not a hazard. Not a health problem.
Not at all.
It's just something that happens.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just wanted to get that one in because I thought that was an interesting question and a good question, and something we haven't mentioned very often here.
It's the little insect is an interesting lifestyle. Hatches on the deer's nose and then lives in the nasal cavity there. But like I said, pretty common.
That's an awfully specialized insect.
Right.
Man. So we've still got a lot of things going on hunting wise this weekend especially.
Right.
So you
and small game too. February if you
I saw a lot of successful rabbit hunts on the social media this past weekend. It'll be good weather. This weekend
cool
too.
This weekend.
It'll be some pretty weather, so take advantage of it.
You got that going on. You've got the military and youth hunt day on Saturday only. Saturday only.
And then for
Chris
folks
is watching you. Saturday only.
Folks in 19 counties there in North Mississippi in the CWD zone, you've got special deer hunt. So a lot going on.
A lot going on this weekend, but we've got something else that this is a really cool topic that you brought John in here for. I like.
Well,
this.
we're kicking off Management Month, and I guess this is I don't know how many years third or fourth, maybe third year we've been doing February as Management Month, and so our agency really puts a blitz of media out there on everything about managing wildlife, managing habitat, managing your property. And we do that here on the radio show too. And so today we're going to be kicking that off with John. I guess we'll get to him after the break. But we're going to be talking about if you're new to managing a property, what are the things you really need to be thinking about?
John's the guy to tell us, and he'll do that next. In studio with us, Adam Butler, Major Chris Reed, Nicole Smith, who is the special surprise post-credits guest here in just a little while. But right now it's John's turn. John Gruchy, the Private Lands Program Coordinator. You hear about wildlife property and you think, if you've never done it before, it's no big deal. But there's a lot of things to keep in mind, right?
Oh, sure, man. That's that's kind of my day job there, is to just work with private landowners, and we provide what we would call technical guidance, which is just providing science-based information to landowners to help them make decisions. We're not trying to push people in one way or the other, just providing that information and help people make decisions, based on what their goals and their objectives are, and figuring out the best way to accomplish those.
Well, and that's the thing, because I know some people have the notion that, I'm going to start a wildlife property. Well, I bought this property. It's a wildlife property. Now we're done.
Oh, yeah.
Do you run into that?
Oh, sure. Actually, that's kind of one of my pet peeves. People will – I'll ask them, we always go through the process, what do you want to do here? What do you want to accomplish? And one of the common responses is, man, I just want it to be good for wildlife. And I kind of just slumped down a minute, like, oh, well, what wildlife? Because actually having a property that's really good for white-tailed deer and bobwhites may not be exactly the same thing, or a really good waterfowl property and a really good deer property may or may not be exactly the same. And so, obviously non-game. We've got people that want to manage for migratory birds, people that want to manage for all kinds of things. And so, you really got to get a little more specific than wildlife and property.
Now, one other thing that you have to keep in mind, I would think, once you bought the property, your investment isn't over here.
Oh, sure. That's a big part of what we do, is work with landowners to find ways to offset the cost, so to speak, offset the cost of that management. And we'll go through a big process with them, looking at, what are your goals and objectives, and that sometimes takes the longest time. It's almost like an interview. You'll ask people, what do you want to do with this property? And one of my colleagues actually has a pretty good exercise. He'll say, look, list the top 2 or 3 things you want to do, and then think about it like this. If you've got 10 cups and I gave you 10, or, if we had a number of cups for however many your goals are, and I gave you 10 poker chips, how would you distribute those poker chips? So let's rank those goals. Let's say you want to grow pine trees to make revenue, and you want big deer. How many poker chips are you putting in the big deer cup, and how many poker chips are you putting in the pine tree cup? And we've got to start thinking about decision making that way. How important is revenue? How important are aesthetics? How does some people have a property that needs to look a certain way to them before they can be pleased with it? And so that's a big part of it.
Well, and that, I think, in large part is guided by what's already there on the property when they make this decision.
Exactly. People will buy a property, and one of the first things we do, we'll pull up a soil map. We'll also look at the infrastructure. What kind of roads do you have? What's your timber market in your area? What kind of timber is on the stump right now? Do you have any economic value in what's there? Or are you going to try to build that value over time? There's just a whole lot that goes into that initial assessment. And so, like I said, we've got biologists that will come out onto a property and make those evaluations, do those assessments at no cost to the landowner, and kind of start making recommendations, steer people in a direction.
Well, and I assume this goes back to what you were saying just a second ago, that some people come in and say, well, I want it to be good for wildlife.
Sure.
With a capital W, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Wildlife.
Yeah.
How many people do you have come in that just say, you know what, I want it to be good, but I just want it to be pretty?
Just want it to be pretty. Yeah, that's... So again, that's actually a really difficult one. Early on in my career, that kind of bothered me, because some people, some types of habitat, for instance, they'll say, I want to do good things for bobwhites. I want to have a bobwhite property, but I also want it to look like a golf course. And those are actually competing objectives. Bobwhite habitat is not pretty to a lot of people's eyeballs. And so that's been a limiting factor. That's been tough for some people to adjust to that. And in fact, good habitat for wild turkeys or white-tailed deer may or may not be appealing to some people's eyeballs. And so we've got to strike a balance there rather than trying to project that value onto people. They've got to figure out where their happy medium is. What can I tolerate? Maybe we can have some barn fringe that looks like a golf course, that looks pretty, that's not quote-unquote snaky, as some people will say, and then have some areas where the critters can have enough cover and food to fulfill their life history strategies.
Some people just have to run the bush hog every now and again.
They got to do it. I call it recreational mowing.
Yeah, you just got to wake up and just have to bush hog something.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you did something.
Yeah.
Do you ever have people show up and go, you know what, I want it to be good for wildlife, but I don't really want anything done to it. I just want it to look squatchy. Just let it grow up. Just let it do what it's going to do. Squatchy.
I like squatchy. I'm going to carry that one. But that would be a mindset of what we might call preservationist. And certainly there's nothing wrong with that. If we've got an individual that, for instance, has a non-game objective, I'll give you an example. Actually did have a landowner, I've had two different landowners that had a high priority for what we call non-game, like salamanders, some of our herps and different things that really need to be left alone, especially during certain times of year. And so that's a hands-off type of management, and doing nothing is a valid management decision. But if your goal is not that, if your goal is going to be a deer, turkey, bobwhite, that's probably going to be a more active management than doing nothing. So.
And that's all part of the decision-making process.
That's right.
Which means you have to know what you want to accomplish when you get into this. And I think some people don't think that far ahead.
Yeah, know what you want to accomplish, and then also knowing if that is realistic. Some people will say you do a site visit. The other people will say, I want 160-inch deer, but it's okay if we only kill 2 or 3 of those every year. Like, oh, well, come here, we need to sit down and have a talk.
Where's that property?
Yeah. So it just depends. A lot of those discussions are managing expectations with people, fine-tuning that over time and figuring out where they fit.
Now, when this conversation gets started with someone who comes to you guys for help and guidance, what are some of the most common things that pop up? Just kind of to help people get these in their mind before they go down this path, what are some of the things that pop up that you go, oh, wait, hold on, you got a problem here?
Yeah, sure. So obviously you've hit on really 2 of the key ones, is revenue and aesthetics. So if you have a property, does it need to pay for itself? How important is revenue for you, and how important is aesthetics? And so if you need to kind of decide on that revenue question, is the property a financial investment that I would ever capitalize upon? Would I ever sell this property and get the revenue from it? And so in that case, that changes some of your decision making on capital improvements. Or is it a legacy property? For instance, my family, we have land in Warren County that's very special to me. It's land that my great-grandparents have had. Killed my first deer, my first squirrel there. My brother killed his first deer. My son's killed his first deer. I'd never part with that piece of land, and so I've got different management decision-making criteria than someone might have that might capitalize on a property later on.
Well, and it goes back, it seems like it's in the same category when we get questions on the C Spire text line, and I'll turn to Chris over here to ask him, and he's already got that look on his face like, I don't know, I got 6 more questions to ask before I can answer that one.
Yeah.
Kind of the same thing here. There is no blanket one-size-fits-all answer to any of this.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. And then even then, I haven't even touched on really any of the biological aspects of it, how the soil is going to respond, what type of forest is already there, and that greatly determines what type of management we would have. What are some of the infrastructure issues? Do you have a way to get from one side or the other to the property? Can you get big equipment? Can you get a lime truck there? Can we get fire lanes in? All of these types of things. Tons of questions that have to kind of be answered. And a lot of these things people haven't really thought about. So really good, really a whole lot of groundwork that has to be laid before we can go off. And then, of course, we have to decide what are those trade-offs. Where are we going to balance revenue? Where are we going to balance aesthetics or the sustainability, the long-term sustainability of your management plan?
And again, just a lot of things that you have to consider. And we're coming up on a break here in just a minute. And after that, if you would, I want you to just go through, let's say somebody's sitting there right now and they're hearing this and they're going, oh, this is a great idea. I want to do this.
Sure.
Okay. Whoa, Pilgrim. Hold on. Let's stop. let's find out exactly what they need to do so things can be done right from the get-go, because I would assume that makes it easier. I'm just guessing here, but I would bet that occasionally you have people show up and they're already halfway through the process.
That's right.
And then they ask you, and you're like, I hate to break this to you.
Sure, yeah. Rarely do we get a landowner who's just bought a property. It's usually going to be somebody at a various states of management. So, but we can work with any of those.
And you mentioned earlier about helping people with the cost of this.
Yeah, sure. And we'll talk about that too, offsetting the cost. And there's a lot of things that go into that. And we'll talk about some of those things I guess after the break, but in general, a whole lot to talk about.
We'll do that when we return. It's the Mississippi Outdoors Radio Show. John Gruchy, Private Lands Program Coordinator. He will lay it out for you. If you're interested in something like this, before you take that first step, he'll tell you where to step so that you don't trip and fall. Basically, here on the JT Show on Super Talk Mississippi. We are joined in studio, and we're continuing our discussion now with John Gruchy, the Private Lands Program Coordinator, and we mentioned it before the break. Let's get into it. Somebody is captured by this idea. They think This is a good idea. They would like to start a wildlife property. What do they do? What are the first steps? How do you go about this the right way?
Sure. Well, that's a great question. I think one of the text questions was, is there a size limit to undergo in this type of thing? An acreage limit per se to the property. Obviously, there's not a limit for your own efforts. We don't have a limit, a lower limit to how small of a property we'll go to. I've done a site visit with 6-acre landowners. Now, there's going to be some limitations when you start talking about what you want to do. If you consider, from a deer standpoint, the average doe home range is about 300 acres. The average buck home range is going to be around 1,000. Turkey home ranges, Butler, we're looking at about 3,600 acres. So obviously there's going to be some limitations on acreage on some of those types of things. But for the most part, everybody's going to go under the same type of path. And that is that first and foremost, you've got to come to a decision with yourself, what exactly do I want out of this property? And then you've got to try to, what we would say, build your team. Start looking, going out of your way and looking for people to help, to provide some technical guidance. Now, obviously, you can deal with immediate family, friends, and neighbors, people they're going to be vested in that property. That's obviously the first place you probably want to look. But also, you can look for land evaluation advice, and of course, the agency has help available. That's through our private lands program, and you can go to our website, mdwp.com/private lands, all one word, and that will get you to our website. You can request a site visit there. Another place that I would start with, or to start looking, is going to be Mississippi State Extension Service. Every county has an extension office, and that is a great place to go for information on a lot of different things, not just wildlife management, but forest management, also estate planning. That's a part that can't be overlooked. Looking at how that property is going to succeed from one generation to the next. Also, the Mississippi Forestry Commission is a great outlet, particularly if you've got some services you're looking into, like prescribed burning, tree planting, those types of things. Really great technical arm that's available for the most part for free technical guidance. Now, they do offer some fee services. And then also, I would encourage everybody to reach out to their county USDA Service Center. So within every county, there's a few counties that don't actually have a physical location, but every county has service available from a USDA Service Center, and there are going to be 2 or 3 organizations in those centers, and they're primarily going to be the NRCS, the Natural Resource the Natural Resource Conservation Service, and then the Farm Service Agency. But most of the landowners we work with are generally going to want to look to the NRCS for guidance. And those are your government organizations. Now, you obviously have some non-governmental organizations like Ducks Unlimited, Turkey Federation, and some of those folks have biologists that can provide excellent technical guidance for species-specific stuff. They're going to be maybe more in tune with some of the national policy issues and some of the different things that those specific organizations can provide. And so that's always a place to look. Now, going outside of governmental, non-governmental, formal organizations, when people get ready they've decided what they want to do, they've developed a plan, they've got everything together, they're going to want to start implementing that plan. And the best thing they're going to want to do is try to find really good contractors or consultants. You don't always have to go with a professional consultant or a contractor. We've had really good luck with landowners, particularly those landowners that have very intensive management regimes. They'll hit you in with a good, like a forestry consultant or something, and have a good long-term relationship with that forestry consultant, and that's been really productive for those folks.
Let me ask you, circling back to something you said a second ago, about the size of your property versus the home range area of what you may be trying to target with that property. I would assume one thing to keep in mind, and a consultant or someone like that, or you guys would help with this, is look at the surrounding properties.
That's a very good point. As a matter of fact, particularly with forestry consultants, we tend to have localized beats, if you will. Those forestry consultants are going to be able to package sales together and get that wood marketed a lot better when they can work with several landowners in a geographic location. Again, same thing with us. We're going to have biologists that are going to be regionally specific, the Forestry Commission, and so they're going to know more about those localized markets. They're going to know about localized contractors. A lot of people need heavy equipment work, and they're going to need a contractor. And so once you get to working with a local group, it's really important basically to try to build that team. It's almost like a social network where you want to be able to reach out and grab any one of those individuals and get opinions, get information. And again, most of the governmental organizations are free services, but your private consultants, your forestry consultants, and certainly your equipment operators are going to be fee service, and they're going to have a fee structure that you can talk with them about.
Now, one thing you mentioned, you used the phrase social network amongst all your consultants and everything,
Sure.
And you gave a list of great resources people can access to find out more information. I'm going to make an assumption here that one of those great resources is not your great cousin Eb on Facebook.
Man, that really depends. I don't want to just dump all over the social media experience. That's how so many people nowadays interact with everything, with people, with news, with information. And so there is some good information out there, but it's just like anything. It's like recipes, like anything. You're going to have some people out there that don't necessarily aren't providing certainly what I would call science-based information. There are people who are going to provide information that may or may not be false, or it might be leading, let's say. But I don't have a problem with people obviously going to social media to get ideas. It's kind of like my wife gets on that Pinterest, which I'm not a one of those. But for idea, you need to build this and put the toilet paper on in the bathroom. There's no problem with that. I think it's good. It's interchanging. That's actually an opportunity, right? So one of the worst things that can happen is when people get in that same mindset of planting the same ryegrass food plot with the same fertilizer and the same tractor over the same, and that's one way to break that up, right? So there is a utility to cousin Eb, not cousin Eb necessarily, as you put it, but there is a utility to being able to get information from people across the state, across the country, and I would encourage people to reach out, but I would encourage everybody to take that information with a grain of salt.
Now, if somebody walks in, let's say you get a call this afternoon because of what we're talking about, and somebody is looking at a property to buy or has bought a property and they're wanting to do something. What are some of the things you could tell them to just walk out there and look right now? And this is an opportunity. You can get a lot of play out of this if you change this or if you do this. What are some of those things for people to look at?
Well, obviously it depends on the goals and objectives, but the first thing we try to look at is what is the limiting factor on that property for that particular critter. So if you want a white-tailed deer, a lot of people, I keep going back to deer, but that's our most popular game species. But if you want white-tailed deer, and it's particularly if you want big mature bucks, the limiting factor 9 times out of 10 is going to be the age structure of those bucks. And so a lot of your management decisions are going to be which bucks to kill and which to let live or harvest or whatever, which ones to harvest and which one to let live, how many does to harvest. Then after that, you want to look at getting as much nutrition into the bellies of those animals, particularly during certain seasons of the year, to try to grow antlers. And so we want to look at those limiting factors and kind of check those off the list. If it's wild turkey or bobwhite, we probably are looking at recruitment. We want more babies. How can you make more? Same thing with squirrels and a lot of other types of things. There may be some critters, some non-game critters that have a bottleneck, particularly I think about, where there's going to be some seasonal need. It might just be 2 weeks, 3 weeks. They've got to have this certain thing like a cavity to nest in, or with wild turkeys, that brood rearing window. They just got to have this certain thing in this one little bottleneck, and we want to address that limiting factor. So it just depends on what their critter is. But in general, most of what we're going to talk about is field and forest management. How are you going to manage your woods, and how are you going to manage your open lands?
And it sounds like, again, and you said this at the very beginning, it all comes back to what's your goal?
Sure.
What are you trying to accomplish? Who are you preparing this land for?
That's right.
In terms of the animal that you're targeting with all of your actions.
Exactly. A lot that goes into that. Most of that decision, that one critical decision that makes 1,000 more is going to be, what do I want to focus on?
Well, John, you and your team can help out with that.
Sure. Go to our website, and we actually have an application where you can push button and submit information to us. Give us your email address, telephone number. We'll try to get back with you. And, of course, we work with all these other entities that I've talked about during most of this discussion as well. So,
John Gruchy, and up next, Nicole Smith with the Museum of Natural Science. It's your time. Somebody wake Nicole up. Okay, she's awake. We'll be talking to her next on Mississippi Outdoors Radio. In studio with us, Adam Butler, wildlife biologist, but now taking the stage from the Mississippi Museum of Natural Science, Nicole Smith. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for asking.
You got to live up to that intro now.
I know.
Sorry.
A lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's okay. It's Monday. It's all downhill from here, right? It's no problem. As usual, a lot of stuff going on over at the museum.
We do. We are kind of action-packed this week. Starting with Friday, it is our celebration of Mississippi Arbor Day called STEM, Leaves and Trees. We think we're cute. Science, tech, engineering, math.
We got it.
Yeah, it's in the morning from 10 till noon that day, and we do have room for a few more people to come on out for that. We're even giving away some live trees for those that pay admission, to come, and there's going to be a lot of wonderful activities, so kind of call and find out more about that. We also have room at our robotics workshop. This Sunday, we have a Daisy Girl Scout robotics workshop, and there's about 5 or 6 spaces left, so you can kind of go on our website, mdwfp.com, look it up, the Daisy Girl Scout robotics, and get registered, and we'll get you going for that. That's from 1:30 to 4:30 this Sunday. Got to register in advance. And then the big thing to talk about is Dinner and a Dive. Now, that's going to be February the 15th. And if you're looking for something to do for your Valentine's celebration, not on Valentine's Day, but around that time, don't want to go into a crowded restaurant, just want to have a unique experience, this is kind of great. Or if you just want to grab some of your friends and come out for that too, for a grown-up evening out, this would be a lovely night.
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is kind of a fancy to-do.
Fancy schmancy, yeah, a little bit.
Do we have to extend our pinkies while we're eating and drinking?
It is recommended.
Okay,
yes.
I was afraid of that. I was just going to ask to make sure. I don't like to look any stupider than I normally do. Now, run us through this. What is Dinner and a Dive? Number one, where did the name come from?
I think it actually came from our assistant director. We were kind of having a brainstorming meeting about what would be a nice event for adults. We do a lot of things for families. But, there's a lot more going on in our museum than things that are just for children. What would feel like a sophisticated night out for adults? And we always like good food, and so we started talking about restaurants that we liked, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So Amerigo is the restaurant. They just won an award, or at least is in the finalist category for best Italian restaurant in Mississippi. So we're going to love them for that. And there's going to be like a cocktail reception. There's live music with musician Richard Smith. There'll be a 4-course meal, a short but sweet interpreted dive during the dinner, and time to kind of meander and explore the museum and make a few new friends.
Very nice. And this is not the usual kind of thing. You mentioned it just a second ago. You do a lot of family-oriented events, but this one is adults.
Absolutely. Like a lot of people that are calling and getting their tickets and reserving are doing it as their Valentine's celebration. I have one small cute of about 5 ladies that are a garden club that's coming out. So I love that. It's their girls' night out. So they're making, a good time of it. There's a 3
They're coming for the trees. I'm just going to warn you. They're going to ask if there are any trees left.
Oh, we'll see. And we also have like a small group of 3 or 4 that are coming as a mini birthday party celebration, for their father. So it's kind of sweet to see who decides to come out for this, but it's going to be, really nice. This is a small fundraiser, for us. The ticket's a little more than usual. It's $75 a ticket. But this is a fundraiser for our events committee so that we are able to do some special things at events that make them kind of unusual and kind of unique, something you don't see just everywhere across the state.
And that's what I love about the museum. You guys, and I say this all the time, and I know it sounds trite, but it's the truth. It's nonstop neat events that you have over there. It just seems like every time I look up, you've got another 3 coming up, and I'm like, where do they come up with these things?
I've given up sleeping for 2020. That's weakness of character. I just need to stay awake and get it all done.
Sometimes life throws you those curveballs, but you're handling it well.
Thank you.
Looking at the layout so far, you've got a good year laid out in front of you, starting just in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, and let me share this about Dinner and a Dive because we don't have a lot of time left. We are selling tickets for this until through this Friday, the 7th of February. All right. We might extend that a little if sales are going good, but we can't extend it beyond noon on that Monday because we have to get our orders in with Amerigo. They have to go ahead and buy their food ahead of time. Items that are available, there will be bruschetta and crab cakes. There will be spring salad and field greens. There will be salmon acuto with black bean salsa and green beans, pork chops with assaggio, mashed potatoes, and veggie medley, and there's going to be a tortellini with a spice cream sauce. So if that doesn't make your mouth water, I don't know what will. There'll also be a chocolate tort and cheesecake tart. So there's lots of choices. So when you make your reservation, we can help you with that.
Now I'm hungry. Thank you, Nicole. How do they get their tickets again, real quick?
So just contact us. You can call at the museum if you need it, or you can go on our website, mdwfp.com, look up Dinner and a Dive, and we will get you squared away.
And we are slap out of time. Adam, enjoyed it? Somebody texted a picture. They think it's a bobcat. They want you to look at it. So you got to come around here and look at it when we get off. John, appreciate it. Chris, who left so he wouldn't have to buy lunch. That's another edition, I hope he heard it, of Mississippi Outdoors Radio.